Good morning, everybody. Let's start. I'm Ragnar Heil. I'm very happy to have you here. I would like to spend the next 45 minutes around the good, the bad, and the ugly, around everything with Office 365 tenant-to-tenant migrations. I will share everything what I know around migrating Azure AD, Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams from one tenant to the other tenant. We'll also give you a lot of live demos. But first of all, I would like to introduce myself and give you a little bit overview about the migration approaches. So it's not only a session where we talk around what's happening in the engine room here. It's also very important to look on the different phases. And my name is Ragnar Heil, and I'm a Microsoft MVP Office Apps and Services living here out of central Germany. So here on my screen, you should see a castle, which is around my corner, which is around my street, 2 streets away. I'm blogging about headsets. I love blogging around traveling as well. Currently, I'm locked here in my home office, as you can see, and I've got a family there. You can reach me on Twitter, by the way, and you can reach me also on Working Out Loud.de. I'm very passionate around Working Out Loud, and you can also use this Twitter handle. On the right picture, you see Microsoft Germany. I was working there for 11 years in different roles before I left Microsoft and joined Quest as a partner channel manager for the Central European region. And then you can also see ragnarheil.de, where I'm blogging every week around Microsoft 365 topics. And since a few weeks, I'm also very passionate a podcaster. So my Ragnar 365 nuggets are appearing weekly, usually around Teams, but also many SharePoint and other topics around the intelligent workplace. And today I would like to share with you different phases, different stages, different pillars of a successful migration between one tenant and the other tenant. And obviously I would like to start with the pre-migration phase, which is the planning phase before we move and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of a migration. And then after the migration, we dive deeper into the post-migration phase, which I'm going to split into management, security, and compliance. So the first question to you here in the chat window is, when you think about preparation of a migration, of a planning of a migration, which migration approaches do you already know and which you have already used? So please be so kind and share in the chat window which approaches you have already seen in your past. What are the different ways to migrate? Please tell me more about it. I will have a look into the chat window. Which approach do you know when you have migrated, or maybe you don't have any kind of experience migrating here from one tenant to the other tenant. Maybe you have done a migration from on-premise to the cloud. So which kind of experience have you done when migrating tenant to tenant, or on-premise to the cloud? Just let me know. Otherwise, I will continue and share with you what I usually think about it. So there are different approaches to migrate one tenant to the other tenant, and one use case is actually to really migrate when you have a merger or an acquisition. So you're acquiring a other company, and then this company is already in the cloud. The company you're currently buying is already in Office 365, and you want to migrate the tenant with your tenant. That's one very common use case. Or something happens and you want to sell your subsidiary. You want to sell your company, let's call it daughter, and do a carve out. That's also one use case, which is very popular. Or now it's spring, and in spring everybody's cleaning the houses and cleaning the garden. Maybe it's also time for you to clean up your garden, your whole environment, and you want to consolidate and really get rid of test tenants, of pre-production tenants, and you just want to do it. And so this is also a good way to go for a single tenant strategy, actually, and reduce the amount of tenants. And the third approach would be go for hybrid, you still want to use AD on premises, but you're also focusing on Azure AD, and you really want to have a hybrid strategy, and then you also need this kind of tenant approaches. A lot of enterprise customers definitely want to go hybrid. And now we're talking about different approaches, how to do a migration. And one is the Big Bang. And Big Bang is very popular because it's very easy for the change management people, because the Big Bang is usually like Friday night to Sunday night, because Monday morning, 8-9 o'clock, every end user has to go back to work and work on a new migrated system. So this is very easy, but it's a lot of stress for the people who have to work on the weekend. Obviously, work-life balance is suffering here, but it's also limited to few scenarios, higher risk. Everybody is under pressure. On the weekend, nobody can work, so it's only possible for few use cases, but definitely a recommendation for less complexity scenarios. The other one would be the sequential. So when you first move one workload, let's start to migrate 1,000 mailboxes in Exchange, next week another 1,000, and then the next week SharePoint, and then Teams, and so on. That's also possible. Less risk, and sometimes in large companies, in large environments, you have to use the sequential approaches, but change management is far more complex. You have to invest in project management, and one of the ugly things is when you don't do it, when you don't care about project management and change management, then you're going to face ugly consequences. And then the manual approach, that's a approach which is very popular because it's just free. You have no licensing costs, you don't pay any kind of third-party tool, but it's very labor intensive. So if you don't want to spend time on tools, then the human resources, your staff has to do the whole migration. And things are going to lose, like metadata. It only works with a limited content size. So that's not an approach for multi-terabyte migration scenarios. And sometimes, especially around Teams migration, it's impossible. You can't do it manually. Incremental approach is a very, very common use case for very large environments, and it's also a use case when the users still want to work on the source environment, but also are working on the target environment. So it's not like, okay, please, dear end users, please stop working on the source. No, they definitely want to work and continue on the source environment, but the migration has already started, so they have to sync and do an incremental migration on the source and target, because both environments are currently in use. And then you definitely need tools, because this kind of scenario is completely impossible without a migration tool. And when we talk about the big approach here in Tenant migration, we can say, listen, in day 0, it's about due diligence. So really understanding, analyzing the systems, doing proper assessments, and then day 1, scoping, planning, securing execution, what is planned. So it's all about executing what you've planned in day 0, and day 2 is obviously the ongoing business when everything is over and you're working on the new environment. And here it's very important to really focus on the right task, on the right actions in each day. So in day 0, really do an assessment around Azure AD, AD on-premise, hybrid AD accounts. Check the licenses. Maybe you have to give some licenses back to Microsoft. Maybe you have to purchase a few more licenses, because in the past you were on E3. Now the new company is on E5, and you have to purchase more licenses. And then also do a workload discovery to have a very crystal clear understanding about your workloads, your content sizes, your content types, your content masses, and the complexity of your content, because that's going to be asked when you kick off the migration. And if you don't have an overview about the workloads and content, you will run into issues, because it's a black box. And here it's all about getting transparency. Day 1, it's the integration, and before you run any kind of migration job, do a backup. It's very important. Track all the changes, and run the pre-migration tools to see in a kind of dry run if something could go wrong when you would kick off the migration. So dry runs and a lot of good tools provide dry runs. Then you see which things are going to be part of your mitigation list, and where you have to spend a few more hours to fix them before you can kick the start button on a migration tool. So that's very important. And also think about the coexistence, because a tenant migration can take definitely a few weeks. And then you need a coexistence because the users on the source tenant and the users on the target tenant want to communicate with each other, sharing the calendar and also address list, and coexistence is very important here. And then on the second day, it's all about make sure when the migration is over, everybody has the right licenses, the right permissions, not too much, not too many. You know, we are all here in the GDPR world, so we want to make sure that we don't are not creating data leaks here with the new system. And what I've seen with the customers is that customers really are tackling tenant migration only from the IT point of view. And here I made a picture here in my area, like Edersee, and this is a upside down team planning, which I would recommend. Not to spend 80% of your resources in IT and only 20 in change management. Do it upside down and really have 80% of your resources for communication, end user training, adoption, and only 20% in IT, and also use tools to help your IT colleagues. And if you are not so familiar with the change management topics, I can definitely recommend to join a free Microsoft course around Microsoft Services Adoption Specialist. It's going to take you 8 or 10 hours to do the training and the certification. It's free, and you only have to pay $75 if you want to get the certification here. That's very important. So change management is crucial here. I strongly recommend it. And before you start with the migration, and you're currently blending it, make sure to define your success criteria, which means, hey, how do I know that I'm staying on budget? How do I know that I'm staying on time? What is my how do I measure successful user adoption? How do I minimize the impact in my business? How do I minimize the zero impact of the concurrent users? Size of content, the complexity, the permission management, which permissions do I have in the moment? How should they change in the future? So the whole thing about status quo and what is going to change here around this kind of permission settings. If you don't have a overview here, please get a workshop, because otherwise your migration is going to be a blind flight without any kind of KPIs and any kind of targets, and that's going to be difficult. And yes, this sounds a little bit old school, but I recommend to have milestones here as you've done it maybe in the last years or decades. So the same kind of milestone planning we also need here when migrating tenant to tenant. So you cannot skip project management, you cannot skip change management. This would create an ugly experience for everybody. And that's what my session is about, to help you to prevent it. And I could talk for hours and hours around end user communication, but really make sure that you have an understanding here about the communication of the timelines. You know, when can the end users go to the new systems? When do the end users have to stop working on the old systems? What are maybe some impact here? What is going to change? Maybe on the new system they're going to use Teams. In the past they use Skype and so on. So here you have to train them to find that the end users get the value of their new tools and understand the value and like it and use it every day and every month. And then very important is think about moving from one house or from one flat to the other flat. It's very important to do data cleaning. Back to my spring thing. It's spring now. Everybody's cleaning the house, so definitely check out to find out which data is still valid, which data is redundant, which data is double, and you have the files 10 or 20 times the same files, which content is questionable, which content is completely old-fashioned and outdated. You have to filter it out and create rule-based cleansing and use the automated machine learning for gleaning here. And this will help to mess up the new target tenant, because it's usually not, it's not very recommended to move the same content into the same target tenant, because there's always room for improvement regarding cleaning and tidying. So let's talk about the information strategy. It's important that you talk with your C-level also and your COO about it, about the future of your company, because maybe you're already sure about your scope, but it can be that the leadership is planning new acquisitions, company reorgs, changes in the leadership. You have to be aware of what's going on, because otherwise you're planning an IT change and there are more changes coming. So you have to make sure to know more about the future to create a future-proof strategy with your tenant migration. And you should stop migrating right now if you see these kind of red flags. There is no sponsor, content is completely unknown, no analysis, no risk assessment, no strategy, users are not engaged, nobody is interested, there is no tools, but you know, it should be finished yesterday. So please, that's a dangerous flag here. Keep in mind. Are there any questions so far? Currently cannot read the chat window. Otherwise, I will go directly into the migration phase, which is the second phase. As you can see here, I've got a few labels here: Office 365, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and actually, I would also love to talk about Yammer, but Yammer is a bit special because it's very difficult to migrate here conversations from Yammer to Yammer. But now Yammer has got the native mode, including SharePoint. So yes, so the SharePoint content can easily be migrated also from Yammer to Yammer, but the conversation and the structure is a little bit tricky. That's the reason why I haven't included Yammer here, even if my heart is beating for Yammer. I would like to show you the tool what we are offering. This tool is completely running on Azure. So we have a beautiful Microsoft partner story here, and our tool here from Quest can migrate Azure AD, SharePoint, public folders, OneDrive, Exchange, and Teams. It can also do many other things around backup and recovering, auditing of hybrid AD, group management, and license management. But now I'm going to focus here on the migration part. And I would like to show you what are the most important things here regarding each different workload. First with some slides, and then later in the live demo. And I will show you what is here recommended, what works already well. And I'm going to show you here, because we are a very close community here, I will show you also the things which are not great. So it's going to be a bit of unplugged session here. So mail and public folders, it's actually very important here to pick a tool, to choose a tool which is not only migrating mails, it also should migrate calendar, contacts, to-do, task, maybe also some other folders. You know, maybe you want to migrate your sent mail folder, or you don't want to migrate your junk folder, and you don't want to migrate your paper bin folder, your recycle bin folder. So here it's a very important to pick the right folder, because you don't want to migrate too much, and you don't want to miss something. And with this kind of coexistence stories, because you sometimes need a longer time frame for the migration, and migration can take days, weeks, or sometimes also months. It's very important to create a great user experience, because the users who are already in the target tenant and the users who are still in the source tenant, they want to communicate with each other, invite each other into their calendars, and here they need a coexistence. And that's not possible out of the box. So you definitely would need tools if you want to offer this kind of coexistence experience. And the great thing is also from a psychological point, because if you acquire a company right now and you would use a tool, then your acquired colleagues could immediately with this tool send out emails to their customers with a new email address. So even if the migration takes a few more days, they can send out mails now and feel immediately at day 0 as part of the new company. So they're growing together as one single company because they are using now the same email, even if the physical mailboxes are still in the source domain and source tenant. So it's not only a technical benefit, it's also a psychological benefit here around coexistence. OneDrive, next workload. OneDrive, yeah, there. Here you can, with this tool, you can, on the one hand, migrate files from one tenant to the other tenant. But the tricky thing is you can also choose if you want to migrate all versions, or you don't want to migrate any kind of versions, or you just pick the version numbers. And it's important to check: do you really want to migrate all the permissions? Because in a OneDrive, usually everybody uses OneDrive for sharing. I've never seen a person who is not sharing with OneDrive. And with OneDrive, you're sharing, with these internal colleagues or external and so on. And you should think about choosing a migration tool which can migrate the permissions and the sharing configuration. And of course, you can also exclude unwanted data. If you say, listen, I've got my OneDrive folder called MP3 and MP4, they're just my private music, and you can exclude them because maybe you don't want to move them into your target tenant. SharePoint, that's a very nice topic. I love SharePoint since I think I started using 2003. And SharePoint usually you can migrate from one tenant to the other tenant in a lift and shift way. So you just say, okay, the same configuration, same permissions, same features, same workflows, same templates, same column configuration and so on from one tenant to the other. So we usually call it the lift and shift migration. That's very easy, but sometimes you have got higher demands, higher kind of requirements, and then you would definitely have to pick a tool where you can change and modify every single configuration. And SharePoint Online has got dozens of configuration buttons, and here it's up to you to have a very good workshop to find out, do we need a lift and shift migration where we migrate all the files and all the existing configuration from source to target, or we want to modify it. We want to modify applications. We want to modify list configurations, column configurations. We want to enable or disable features and so on. And that's something here definitely which you have to consider. Also around metadata, with migration tools, you can modify metadata, you can modify all the permissions, because it can be that your source tenant has completely different kind of metadata permissions as you would like to have in your target tenant. And here it's all about having the right workshops with the right stakeholders, because if you skip this kind of conversations, then you would maybe go for an easy approach, but at the end everybody would be unhappy because they have the wrong permissions, they cannot access their content, and the day 2 experience on a Monday morning would be somehow flaky. So what we can see here, basic things what we can easily do also with our tools from Quest is user mapping between both tenants, moving list and document libraries, basic metadata like author, editor, modify date, and so on. We can also modify complex metadata. We can move files, we can move content types, features, and so on. Document list, columns, SharePoint sites, and so on. OneNote, navigation, site description, and so on, so on. So a lot of things what we can do with our Azure-based tools. But if you need a very advanced thing, then we have more tools here in our toolbox, which can tweak all the other things like transforming workflows, advanced reporting, advanced logging, advanced alerting, and link correction, and deploying rewritten code. So if your old code needs to be rewritten because you want to use now SPFX, then these tools can deploy new SharePoint apps who are rewritten thanks to the greatness and goodness of things like of framework like SPFX. So it's all about here with this advanced migration scope. It's all about modernizing SharePoint. So it's not purely around file migration. It's about modernizing, and here you would need a sophisticated approach how you would like to modernize SharePoint in the new target tenant. Teams, yeah, we are all of Teams, but migrating from one tenant to the other can be a nightmare. You can easily lose data. You can easily lose conversations or users. And what works well at the moment, what we can see from our tools, but also tools from the friends in our market, is that we can migrate teams. We can migrate channels. We can migrate users. We can migrate the configuration of a team. We can migrate the migration of a channel. We can also migrate private channels. Others maybe can't do it. We can migrate the conversations. We can migrate files, of course, which are part of SharePoint. We can migrate tabs like PDF or Word or Excel, PowerPoint, and we can migrate OneNote and Planner. So pretty advanced. What we cannot do regarding Teams migration is currently things like Stream. Here we're missing the API around Stream migration. Power BI migration is tricky. Power Automate migration is very tricky. There are some issues also in the private chats conversation currently. Meeting calendar migration maybe coming soon, but that's currently from our point of view, from the Quest point of view, also not possible. So and there are new APIs coming from Microsoft. So if you have joined the Build conference, then you've seen also new APIs around subscription and so on, feed APIs. Yeah, so here we definitely need these new APIs to really migrate all the new goodness which were announced a few days ago. And we also need a migration API because currently a lot of things are done with the client API and not with the migration API because it's not existing. And but we're waiting to get hands-on, and this would also improve the migration speed. But nevertheless, the biggest parts of Teams are always documents. Documents are part of SharePoint, and for SharePoint we have the beautiful Azure Migration API. So here for the SharePoint migration, which is part of Teams, we don't need. So we already have what we need. COVID-19, sorry, I have to mention it. I'm very sorry. COVID-19 is still existing, and we're seeing currently a lot of issues around it because Microsoft is throttling Office 365 due to heavy demand. You know, Teams is growing like 800%, and Microsoft is throttling the tenants for Teams and also for SharePoint. And so when we recommend to do a migration, we always recommend to do it in the after work hours. So now we are in the Central European time zone, so we always recommend to start a migration around 7-8 o'clock in the evening, and then stop the migration batch also at 7 o'clock in the morning. So don't migrate between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. CET, or also for a year. Also, if you know in PST, don't migrate a bit in your tenant a bit between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. PST, or whatever your time zone you're currently in. That's very important. Also pick the weekend. Choose a migration tool which shows you log files information around throttling. And if you see throttling, then talk to Microsoft support to disable throttling for a few days or for a few weeks. But prove to them that you are throttled. So log files have to show that you are throttled, but they also would see it. And the most important recommendation here on COVID-19 is, well, yeah, keep the distance, wash your hands, and cut your migration into different pieces and chunks. So really don't migrate 100 or 1,000 teams in one single batch. Make sure to cut it into very nice slices We call it in Germany the salami technique. So really cut them into slices to make sure that one slice can really start at 7 p.m. and can really also stop at 7 a.m. in the morning. So it's actually like driving on a highway, you know, when I'm here in central Germany and I would like to go to Italy, then I can have a very, very fast drive on the Autobahn with my car in the night, but it can also be that I'm arrive at the Brenner in the morning, 7 o'clock, and then I'm throttled because I'm spending like 2 or 3 hours in this tunnel and I cannot move forward. So even if I had 7 hours racing time on the highway, I can also be throttled in this tunnel and stuck there for 3 hours. So make sure that you arrive at your destination before you are throttled in this traffic jam, which we call the cloud here. We have published a blog post about deeper insights here from Quest. So check this out, quest.com communities/blogs. You will find our recommendations around throttling. And this is very important here to do. So not only one single migration job, split your whole migration into multiple jobs. So even if you're planning a big bang for the weekend, make sure to have multiple jobs here running, or to go also into your weekdays. But when you migrate over the weekdays, make sure to migrate on the evenings. And that's important. So it's going to be more a sequential approach, which I've mentioned in my first slide, and not a big bang on the weekend. That's sometimes too challenging. Yes, COVID-19. So let's go into a live demo. And first, let me know if you have some questions before I jump into my live demo environment. So I'm currently authenticating here into my live demo, and I'm going to share my browser screen in 1 second. Authenticating. So this tool is our future, or this is our future and focus and leading product. It's running on Azure, so you don't need any kind of installation on your server or in your databases. Purely running on Azure. As I mentioned, it has got different modules here around migrations, recovery, license management, auditing, and group management. But I would like to focus here on the migration. And here I could go and create a new migration project where I specify the source and the tenant, but I want to skip the whole password topic. So I'm going directly here into my existing project where I have granted the right permissions and the right passwords. So here I see on the left-hand side, I see a kind of guidance. So first, make sure to grant the right consent, and then discovery of accounts, matching of accounts, and then migration. So that also can tell you that before you start any kind of Teams migration, for example, you have to start with the account migration. So account migration is definitely always the most important thing, and it's always the very first thing. So there is no OneDrive or Teams migration or mail migration without an account migration. And when migrating the accounts, is the first step is a discovery job. And this would go directly, I just click here on next, it would go directly through your source tenant to your target tenant and discover which accounts are there. You can run it now, or you can also schedule it for, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the night. But now we would like to discover what's happening. And here I also get a nice information around my discovery job of my accounts. And I can go into the task section, and here I'm going to get more information around the task. So I can see here a little kind of progress bar, and I can here sit and wait until it's 100. Or if I'm very technically savvy and geeky, I can also click here on the log file section and go directly into the logs. and then I would see easy to read logs, and I can see immediately what's going on log file level. So the times when you have to read ugly logs are totally over, and this is the way how the system is currently telling you what's going on under the surface. So now my 63 accounts were found, and then I can go directly and migrate them. And sometimes you say you just want to migrate your CEO, then you would maybe go and just migrate him, or you would migrate, for example, everybody, and pick for a title. Let's say, okay, I only want to migrate marketing, or I also want to migrate the C-level here, or I want to migrate only people from the US or only from Germany. That's also possible. Then you would pick here and you would sort things, or you just want to migrate here conference rooms or shared mailboxes. So there are many different ways to sort it. And you can also go here and pick one. So let me just take a human being, because this one here has failed. And if you want to see why he has failed, you can also go back to the events and see, okay, so this guy is already used. So, and here I can see that this colleague is already there. So you get very detailed information why the first migration failed, and then I can change it. I can do a matching here, and then after doing a proper matching, I can continue with the migration. And with the migration, I specify the target tenant, and then I just run the migration job right now, and it's going to migrate to my target tenant. Then the next job after migrating mailboxes, after migrating accounts, would be migrating mailboxes. So here I just pick people. Let's say Adele is my CFO, and I want to migrate her mailbox. I could switch it, because I want to switch from source to target or target to source, but currently it's fine, and I just migrate her immediately without any kind of modifications. And then I can choose between a plan. So let's say I want to migrate her to an E5 plan and not to an F1 plan, and then I click on next, and here I choose what I want to migrate. So like calendar, contacts, notes, recoverable items, permissions, and so on. Primary mailbox to primary, next, yes, all folders, but I don't want to migrate deleted and the junk one, and I don't want to migrate. So I just click here and then run it now, and then she's going to be migrated. So next action, accounts, mailbox, OneDrive. OneDrive is the next workload, and here I'm going to pick her again. Let's choose Adele. Let's migrate her OneDrive, and let's migrate all. She's currently in a regulated industry, and she needs to migrate all different versions. So all versions which are existing in OneDrive have to be migrated. And if the target files are already there, then please skip the migration. And please update all permissions for all contents. So the permissions should be definitely migrated and also updated, both migrated and updated. Click on next, and then pick a plan for Adele. She's the CFO, so she gets an E5 plan, and then click. And here you can exclude folders like, please, I don't want to migrate her MP3 folder, and I don't want to migrate documents which are older than 2015, and I don't want to migrate files which are larger than 5 gigabyte. So a lot of exclusion rules which can be managed here. And then click, go, and yes, and now the migration is running. And the same kind of logging here, so you click just on details, and then you would see how the migration is currently performing. So what do we miss here? We have accounts, we have mailboxes, we have OneDrive. So let's move in the last 5 minutes into SharePoint and Teams, that you can see what's going here. Let me just refresh my browser. So SharePoint migration is currently hopefully loading. So here I go back to SharePoint. What I can do is here first select design collections. So here I can say, listen, I want to migrate everything. I want to migrate the whole tenant, or I just pick my Mark 8 site collection. Let's say here I just want to migrate the Mark 8 site collection and not all. That's currently the most important one. And I also have communicated it to my users that this one is the first one. So it's always part of my communication strategy. I can also map here from a file. I can also export it. So in case you've got thousands, you can use a mapping file. Here you can choose the user. If people have left the company and they're currently unmatched users, you can match them to your admin user or to somebody else, to Jodo, because the old users have left the company. And then include site structure and include contents and run now. And now the SharePoint migration will be migrated to the tenant. We don't need to wait here, and we jump directly into Teams, our last exercise. Chrome is, oh, it's Firefox actually, yeah, it's not Chrome. So last but not least, Teams. So the first thing what I need to do is run a discovery job. That's something what I've done already, so we don't need to wait here. And this discovery job has discovered several teams here. So let's pick the retail team. And before I can migrate the retail team, I need to do a provisioning task. And here say, listen, if the retail team is already existing in my target, what should I do? I should maybe merge it into the existing team or create a new team. And here I call it migrated retail team. And there are also very annoying welcome messages sent out to every kind of users, and they hate it. And here you can easily suppress the welcome messages which are sent out by Teams. So I'm just disabling it. And now the provisioning job is running now. And actually I need to wait here, but I don't want to wait. So I'm going to migrate immediately. And here you can choose between migrating files and messages, migrating messages only, migrating OneNote Planner, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. And if the conversations are already existing in the target, you can merge them. You can merge the new conversations from the source into the existing conversations in the target and run it now. And you're gone. So thanks much for watching here. I will move to my final part of the presentation and move now into PowerPoint again. 1 second. So back to PowerPoint. So we have done now the home migration, and now the last steps would really be managing the post-migration steps and securing and make the whole new environment more compliant. And around management is really, you have to have conversations, you have to have workshops around how Teams is now used. Is everybody still using Teams, or are people reverting their behavior back into their old behavior, and maybe they are still sending emails, or maybe you have got too many teams, so you have to care about the governance of teams, because people are creating 10 marketing teams and 20 sales teams, and people have no idea which teams to use. So please care about Teams governance, otherwise they would go back into their old behavior, writing emails with attachments, because they have no idea which team is the right one. Monitor the behavior of users. There are great tools on the market to analyze teams, and check the permission structure, check the group rights, make sure that the external users don't see content that and files they shouldn't see. Make sure to have a governance around external users. Make sure to have governance around policies in place, around external applications, around bots, around the connectors. Make sure that only the connectors and applications are approved by your company, so that not the wrong people can add the wrong kind of connectors to Teams, which can leak out your data from a tenant outside of your company. And make sure that you're using the security and compliance solutions from Microsoft on board to improve GDPR compliance here in Teams. Because Teams is not for chatting, Teams is really for collaboration, and you're going to have also sensitive information with PII content in Teams. And finally, I talked about all the different phases and the pillars, and the last pillar would be really to evaluate your migration project. So you know, at the end of your migration project, share the experiences, collect them, gather feedback, and learn. Because maybe this migration is not the last one in your whole life. So please share your experiences with your stakeholders, with your end users. Maybe you want to open an internal Yammer group and have conversations around the experiences, so that the next migration is going to be maybe faster, maybe smoother, whatever. So this is a great way to learning. So when the migration is over, it's not over, but here there's so many things which we can learn every single day. And the products here from Microsoft are evolving. The migration tools are evolving. So here there is that's a great opportunity to share what we are learning. So thanks so much for your time. Mark your calendars for the great new conference here in Las Vegas. I can't wait to travel March 23rd, 25th, Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference. And also thank you so much for the whole sponsors. I love to be part of this event. Thanks for your attention. I'm going to move directly now to the next session and learn more from the great speaker. And also please join the raffle. I love Oculus. I don't have the Quest. I should have the Quest because I'm working for Quest, but I only own the Oculus Go, and it's a great device. So thanks so much for your time. Have a great day. Stay healthy, keep the distance, and wash your hands. Thank you so much.